Okay, so this is going to be we are just starting the show and tell sync session for both Predict 411 and Predict 498. We have a joint class in here, and people are going to just talk about whatever they other students might feel is interesting. And this is for, let's see, this is spring quarter, April 28, 2016, and our first participant, Tanya, what's your last name? I don't even know that off the top of my head.
Silva.
I'm sorry.
Silva, Tanya Silva. Silva, S-I-L-V.
Oh, Tanya, that's right. You were in my 410 class, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I remember you. Okay, well, Tanya is going to be my first person tonight, and she's going to give a quick overview of Tableau for any students who may not have seen it before. So, Tanya, you're up, and there's no pressure. Just have some fun.
Okay, thank you, Don, and hello, everybody. My name is Tanya Silva. I'm on the capstone project. I am graduating. I already booked my tickets to Chicago for commencement. I'm very excited. I've been into this program for way too long, and it's time to go. So today I will show you a Tableau. You can get Tableau student version for a year or for as long as you're a student. I'm showing right now a desktop version, which I got for my capstone class. If you go to tableau.com, you can download, so I think there's /student. You can Google Tableau student version. And when you download it, you should send email to Tableau support asking for the license key for the student. They will ask you to send you their your class schedule. All I did, I just sent my Canvas screenshot, and I got the license. So in my project, we're working on a data privacy project. And right now we're doing a market research. Is there really a market problem for the privacy? So what we've done so far, we found a data source from just a second. So it's the data source is privacyrights.org, and they basically list all the data breaches occurred wherever they can find it. I downloaded the file. It's comma separated file, and you can see that in Tableau you just open, connect to the data. You can review for data quality. You can also do all the data transformations that you need. Because it's a simple project. I'm sorry, I need to close. My kids are here. Yeah. Because it's a simple project, I don't need to do any joins or SQL or like that. But if you need to, you can do it in this area. So when we do analytics, it's very easy, and I will show you with the new field. For example, you just want to know what's the number of total records stolen, and that's a big number. You want to know, okay, in which states is it most likely to happen? It's okay, you can see it's not really good visualization, but if you use bubbles, you can see right there, New Jersey, Massachusetts, District of Columbia, Indiana, California, lots of records. It's okay, but then you can see, but what about the type of the records? And they say, well, Indiana, there was hacked, ports. You can switch it back and forth here to see it in a different view, trying to understand how does it look. Put total records here. It's it's a very good tool to try to understand if there is any anything interesting you can find, anything that would visualize it. Like in Arizona right now, it was hacked. Alaska, for example, there is no physical breaches. Credit cards, not as high as people would think. Card means that it was a credit card. Physical, it means it was physically moved. Unknown. So some of the analytics, you can do different analytics on this. For example, for this one, I was trying to look at what months over all years the data breach report is happening, not the actual data breach. And you can see that it's either January, probably because they try to hack everything in December, everybody's on vacation, and somewhere like October, people come back from vacations. Like, for example, over all these years, the least amount of reported is in July. Is it because there is no hacks in July, or is it because there is people on vacations? So there is a lot of different things. And let me check. I can see now. Tanya, did you try using the map of the years to show it rather than bubbles? Yes. And in fact, let me show you. Let's do it like this. So totally new state, total records, and I believe it should pick up the map if I map it to the geographical state province. If you see, I that's what I love about Tableau. You can modify what it is on the fly, and now it will recognize the map, right? I'm sorry. So Susan, that's to answer your question. Yes, you can see, and you can change the colors. You can change how it looks. You can basically do anything you want. There is a lot of cool things after you can do to present it after you're done with analyzing the data. You can create a dashboard, and a dashboard is really simple. So you can just drag and drop, and right now I'm just putting a really quick introduction. So this is a dashboard, and you can export it as an image if you need to present to your manager, to your CEO. And my computer is a little bit slow. Anyway, you can save it as you want. What else you can do is very interesting thing is you can create a story. And a story is, think about it as a visual represent, like telling the story with the data. And I apologize, my computer is a little bit slow. Tableau is not really slow. It's my computer needs some cleaning and update. So
Also,
instead of
it'll be slow because you're on the blue jeans. That's what's slowing you down.
okay, so the story I already created, and again, it's really drag and drop. So visual story of data breaches. You can. This is still work in progress, but if you click on just a second, where's the presenter story? I thought I could do the video. Anyway, I lost it. You can publish it on a server, and whoever has a link to your server, they can see it, and they can see Atlanta's hacked, Indianapolis hacked. You can see because it's already by color. Like in Calabasas, it was inside job. Like purple is inside Jacksonville. In New York, some open ports. Total records stolen right away. Heartland Payment System, 130 million. Home Depot. Everybody heard about TJ Maxx. By entity type, It's BCR, businesses, government is interesting. The month's data was made public. It's probably, I cannot see it because my screen is too small. Okay. Information source for the data loss. Those databases, Data Loss DB and Media, those are the biggest one that reported it, but which leads me to believe that those are aggregates, like data loss is probably combined on all of them. The quality of those data sources is questionable. I would think that if you're really looking into this domain, all attorney generals are probably most likely to have high quality data versus data loss DB or media. Just because media says, oh, there is 1 billion records stolen, it's not necessarily true. But if California attorney general says, I have gotten a report and 13 million records went away, that's it. So very quick introduction of Tableau. I love it. My recommendation is do get it. It's for 1 year. It's free from Northwestern. For quick and dirty analysis, it's awesome, especially when you're trying to do EDA and get the before you were Don was showing, like if some values don't exist or something, Tableau will show you right away if there is something off. I am done. So any questions?
I am really, really happy that you did this. And just for the students, as Tanya says, this is free. You can get this out there. And for the 411 students, just as I give bonus points for using R and Angus and other tools, if you could do some good graphics in this and put it in your report and then let me know you were using Tableau, that could be worth some points to you. And the nice thing is if you can get good at this tool, and then you get into 498, this could be extremely valuable. I noticed the students in my 498 class who do the best have this great visualization. And usually the way the class is organized, they really divvy up the work. And there's usually one guy on the team who's the expert at Tableau. And they crank out these really pretty graphs and pretty dashboards. And it just makes these projects sparkle at the end. So it's a great way to get a head start on a very important skill. So Tanya, thank you so very much. I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Do we got some other volunteers? I know Paul might do something with R. I know that's putting you on the spot, Paul, so you can certainly, you don't have to do that. I'm not pressuring, but do we got some other people who also want to do anything?
Hi, Don. It's Annie. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Paul is also in, so Paul's still in. But Annie, I might let you go first because you had volunteered. But is there anybody else who wants to go tonight as well? We'll try to divvy up the time accordingly. Okay. Well, Annie, I'm going to make you you get to be the presenter. So Tanya, if you stop sharing your screen, then we'll let Annie. You can dive in.
Okay, sounds good.
So Annie, what are you talking about?
So I'm going to be talking about just some free resources for learning data science and the things that we're learning in this program outside of this program. So let me share my screen so you guys can see my wonderful PowerPoint. Let's see.
I already love the sound of this. Free resources. And when you're done with this, can you give us a list of them so that we don't have to be scrolling them down? You'll give us a list when we're done?
Yeah, and can you guys see my screen?
Not yet. Are you sharing it?
I thought I was. Let me see. Let me click it again. Oh, it says I have to install it using an extension. That's
okay.
Installing it right now. Sorry about this. I've never used BlueJeans before. I was just listening to everything afterwards. So, okay, I think it will work now. So, okay.
I think it's like on the right side. Oh, there you go. Something's loading.
Okay. So, okay, so I will just run through my PowerPoint, and I do have links, and I can post this later so you guys can look at it. So everyone can see this, correct? Hello?
I can see it. This is yep. We can.
Okay.
I can see it. This is great.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I'd like to just go over some resources I found and have used since starting this program. So I'll talk about some online only classes, some online and in-person classes, workshops, and events, and also just some podcasts for those of you who like to listen to data science things. So I'm going to start with Coursera. I think a lot of people have some familiarity with it and have probably taken some courses. One of the most popular tracks that I think other MSPA students have done is the data science specialization offered through Johns Hopkins University. And so there are 9 different courses plus a capstone you can do. And all of it's free unless you want to pay for a certificate or if you want instructor feedback. But I've signed up for some of these classes, and there really are like a lot of cool resources because you get a lot of the videos, you get readings, you get different coding exercises, you can do projects, and it's covering a lot of the things that we are covering in this program. But I think it helps reinforce some of the concepts that we're learning and introduces new ones as well, or just a different perspective of learning these new or learning these concepts. Has anybody like done this specialization, or is this new to everyone?
This specialization, I've never seen this before. This is in Coursera.
Yeah. So if you search for data science, this is usually the one that'll pop up first. And then you can just enroll in one of the courses. And I think each course is 10 weeks and they start every 3 weeks. So you can just jump in pretty much whenever. And even if a course has started, you can always jump in. But yeah, if you just go to Coursera and you search for data science, this is one of the things that pops up first, and you can just enroll in whatever course you want. So this is something that I've checked out and I recommend. I haven't done the whole sequence yet, but I thought I'd share it with you guys in case nobody knew of it. So yeah, so that's one of the sources. And something else that I found that's really cool is a website called Dataquest IO. And there's a few different tracks that you can choose. You can either do the data analyst track or the data scientist track. And those 2 tracks start off with you learning Python and some of the basics. So they start off at the same point and then they diverge a little bit. And they're also going to introduce a data engineer track later on. I'm not sure what coming soon means, but it's going to come soon. So there are these specific tracks that you can do, but then there's all these other courses that are free that relate to data science. So you have data visualization, you have statistics, Kaggle competition, so completely relevant to what we're learning. Other stuff too, like the APIs and web scraping. So there's a lot of really cool stuff, and these are I've started the Dataquest IO. I think both the data analyst and data scientist tracks. So I haven't checked out the subjects, but so far everything has been like really well like designed and put together. And each track is divided into courses, and then each course has different missions. So you can't move on to the next mission until you've completed the previous one. And all the missions have a lot of really easy to understand explanations of the things that we're learning. So, if it's talking about Python, it'll go over some of the basics, and then you practice some of the coding. And so everything is free to start, and I think it's free for most of the content because I've gotten pretty far into some of the courses, and like it hasn't asked me to subscribe, but you can subscribe, and I think if you subscribe, you'll unlock some higher level missions. But otherwise, there's a lot of content there just to like check into for free. So it's something that I really enjoyed. And I don't have a picture of it, but every time that you do one of these tracks, you have an explanation, and then you have an area where you can code and there's a prompt. So it'll like, you'll learn a lesson and then it'll say, okay, like now I want you to code this. And then you have to code it. And then it'll check it if it's right. If it's not right, you can get a hint. And if you keep failing it, then they'll give you the answer and suggest that you go back and redo it. So I found that's pretty helpful. And sorry if it gets loud. I live right near a train, so just a heads up. So Dataquest is a really cool site. And something that I really have enjoyed over the past year or so is Meetup.com. Has anybody gone to any meetups, or is anybody familiar with meetups?
I just went to my first one yesterday. It was for R programming.
Okay, cool.
I go to TWI on Meetup.com.
Okay. Yeah, like there's just so many things out there, and I think it depends on where you live. I'm in Chicago, so there are a million meetups that you can do. As you can see, this is like my homepage for Meetup, and I have a meetup coming next week about shared use mobility and data for the city of Chicago. But there's always like coding coffees. There's also like an intro to SaaS bootcamp here. And these are just some of the meetups that I belong to in Chicago that are more data science oriented. But there's meetups for pretty much everything. And I've gone to quite a few meetups in the past. I've learned a lot of really cool things. And some of the most recent ones that I've attended include one about data visualization. And so here's just a description of what the meetup was before I signed up for it. And we ended up using the IRIS data set, which is a pretty common data set, and just trying different visualization techniques using this data set and using Python. So it was really cool. And like, what's nice about Meetup is you get to meet people at all different skill levels and who work in a lot of different industries. So you have people working at like bigger companies and people who are doing freelance stuff or people who are working at startups. So you get a wide variety of just like personalities and skill levels in the class. And I've always found them to be pretty useful. The Meetups is a very useful way to learn new things. And I included a link here of this previous meetup that I went to. So it's with a group called Pi Ladies for Python ladies. It's geared towards women, but men show up too, which is totally fine. And so usually what they'll do is they'll like have some sort of like PowerPoint with information. And I won't spend a lot of time on this because you guys can check it out later if you look at the links. But you'll, tell you what you need. Usually you can get the stuff beforehand, install it, and then you just start coding and just playing around with it and seeing what happened. So people will help you out, and so it's pretty cool. Let's see. I'll let you guys look at that more on your own if you want. All right. So something else that I've gone to recently is this group that's also hosted in part by the Python Ladies group. And it's for data analytics with Python. So another Python thing. And this was about Bayes' theorem. So something we're all very familiar with. And the way that they wrote me into this course is that it's just it's over 9 months. It's a workshop for 2 to 3 hours every night. Just once a month, sorry. And you learn a lot of interesting things. So this was talking about Bayes' theorem and Bayesian classifiers, and what we ended up looking at to start off with was just like the presidential election and taking the case of, okay, like if you're transported into the future and you're at the US-Mexican border and there is a wall there, like what is the likelihood that Trump is president? What's the likelihood that Clinton is president? Like based on what, like, how likely they are to become president in the first place and how likely they are to actually like build a wall if they become president. So so you can like, I think all these kind of meetups, you learn like really relevant things, and just different ways to apply what we're learning in this program outside the program. So I have another link here, which you guys can check out. And I'll show you quickly that there's a lot of slides that I'll just kind of pass through. But at the end, usually there's a link to GitHub, and then you can look at the different code that we used. So if anybody is curious to check this out, you guys can start learning some more Python while we're learning SAS. So I think it's like a really good resource just to learn more and to really reinforce the concepts that we're learning in this program. So because we are learning SAS in this course, and because not all of you live in Chicago, I figured I would share some information on different webinars that are coming up in this next month. And so if anyone's interested, you've got a lot of different dates in May and one in June to learn all about different SAS features. So I see on May 10th, you can learn about Enterprise Miner. And on the 18th, you can learn about ODS graphics and code playground with MS Office. So you can also learn about Park Transpose. So all these different things. And all these are links. And I'll post this afterwards on Canvas. So if anybody's interested, you can just check them out. If you have a free lunch, you can tune into one of these and learn very much how we do in this course. So online. Yeah. And then I guess just a couple other things that I want to talk about are different podcasts. Because I found that a lot of the concepts that we're learning in this program, like some of them can be like pretty tough, and it's good to like hear about the concepts and get exposure to them in multiple ways. So like reading about them in our textbooks and then practicing things with either like R or Python or SAS, and then like listening to like the videos in the class and watching them, but then also maybe listening to podcasts about some of these topics is just like, it really helps reinforce what we're learning, at least for me. It didn't come from a really hard kind of technical background. I studied English and politics in undergrad, so this is very different from my previous academic studies. But so Talking Machines is one of the podcasts that I've listened to, and they like to bill themselves as a human conversation about machine learning. So typically they're 30 to 60 minutes. Some of the topics they cover are more advanced, and they have guest speakers, and they're talking about some of like just a lot of different concepts or aspects of machine learning in great detail. One of the ones I listened to recently was about the software and statistics for machine learning. So you can see a description of that, and it's just how to build the software, what kind of challenges exist for building the software, and then they talked about EDA and useful ways of looking at data, and then they interviewed someone from Stanford and got his input about machine learning. So I've included the link there as well, so you can check that out if you want to listen to something on your commute to work or when you're at home. And then just the last one is another podcast called Data Skeptic. And I really like this podcast because they explain things in very easy to understand terms. And they have a lot of cool mini episodes and longer interviews. So if you only want to listen to something for 10 or 15 minutes, you can choose a mini episode. But if you want to go into greater detail, you can listen to something that's a little bit longer. So one of the mini episodes that I listened to recently was the elbow method, which is something that we learned in 410. And so they were trying to estimate the cost of houses in LA. And it was like a lot of the mini episodes are just focused on one concept. So either like the elbow method or just about like regression modeling in general, like what is it, about K nearest neighbor. So yeah, I found those to be really helpful in understanding content for this program. And this podcast, they have a community project going on where they're looking at home sales data. So very similar to some of the stuff we did in 410, but just kind of taking it a step farther and using real data in real time So that's something, if you guys want to look into that, you can check out the Data Skeptic link. So yeah, those are just some things that I found and that I've either gotten involved in or checked out over the last year and a half. And they're all free. So like that's something that I think is really great because we're paying a lot for this program, so might as well learn as much as we can in the program, but then get as much as we can outside the program with other free resources. So yeah,
Wow,
any questions?
Annie, this is Don. I'm just amazed. I got an echo here.
Oh.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, there I'm off. Okay, I'm just amazed at the voracious appetite you have for this knowledge. You're going to be really good at this. I encourage everybody else to basically follow Annie's example here. One of the things that I've noticed in my day job with SAS is I go around the country, and I work with various analytics groups at various companies, and the people who are the best at doing this for a living are the people who are like Annie, and they have this, they're constantly at a meetup or taking a course on Coursera or whatever. And I don't care what your background is. I'll take somebody like, like Annie here over a guy with a, Nobel Peace Prize in math who never tries to learn anything more. It's the people who keep constantly learning are going to be the most successful at this. So I'm impressed at your desire to learn this stuff. And can I have the copy of these slides to pass on to the students?
Oh yeah, of course. I can send that to you on Canvas after this this discussion.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
So, well, Paul, I'm going to make you're next up on the list. Are you ready to go?
Okay, yep, I'm ready to share.
Okay, Paul, go. Hey, it doesn't have to be too long. I know this is just the R part, but I think it'll still be so useful to the students.
Yeah, I think it'll probably just be a quick few minutes here.
Oh, I'll take what I can get. I think this is going to be useful to the students. And you can share your screen, though.
Yeah, and you know what? Now it's asking me for a Java plugin. Did anybody else have this problem for Chrome?
Oh, can you try getting in on Internet Explorer?
I'm on a Mac. I can try Safari real quick.
Yeah, otherwise, this is Annie. I did just have to install the plugin, and it didn't take too long. So if you can't get in on one of the other browsers, the plugin does work pretty well.
Okay. Just bear with me for 1 second.
Paul, what's your last name so I can give you some bingo bonus here?
Bertucci, Paul Bertucci.
Oh, okay. It's so many students, I forget who's who.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
I sure can.
Okay, great. All right, so I built my first decision tree for the baseball homework assignment. So I'm still learning with all of you. And I'll just do a quick run through of what each line in the code does. It's only about 30 lines long, but it's very helpful. These first 2 lines are just bringing in the different packages. So I had to install the rpart and rpart plot packages to my machine, and it's just a quick install.packages line. You can look it up on Google. It's pretty easy. This option, SciPen 999, just removes the scientific notation, so it makes it a little bit easier to read my output. And then these 2 lines 5 and 6 are just bringing in the data. And when I do a read CSV like this and bring it into this object called iData, it's really just a big spreadsheet. So you can see that that this just shows the first 5 records, but it has all the different data in it. It's called the data frame, but it really just acts like a big spreadsheet, or it's similar to a Python data frame, etc. So some of this data in our insurance data set is formatted in a currency format. So it's got the $ and the comma. So in order for R to view these as numerical values, we had to change the format. So I had to get rid of the $ and get rid of that comma. So I just created a really quick, simple function that does that. It just takes in the $ format and puts it into a numerical format. And I'll just show you what I mean down here. If I look at the head of, so the first 5 records of income, it looks like in this currency format. But if I put it through my function, and it changes it to a numerical format. And where it's blank, it just gives me an NA. So that was helpful, because then I could just run all of the variables that were in the currency format through this little cur2num function, and it corrects it for me. So I'm going to run that piece of the code there. So this is the actual decision tree algorithm. It's our part, and all it's doing is predicting the income, the transform variable income, right? That's just the numerical variable income, using all of the other variables in the data set. So I just dumped in everything that I could. So it's just like the model equation that we put in the SAS proc logistic or proc reg format. It's just, we just write the function here. And then I'm using the data set that I made up there. There's a couple different methods, and you can read about them. I'm still learning about them. There's an ANOVA method and a classification method. They all do different things, but it all helps, and it comes out to a similar result. And then there's a complexity factor. And again, you can read about this. This, I believe for ANOVA, it was like the R squared that needed to be achieved to split the set, but I'm not exactly sure. Again, I would suggest reading about it. In I'm still learning. I just built my first decision tree a few weeks ago, so I will go ahead and run that, and that just takes a couple seconds. These 2 functions just help me with the format when I print out the tree, or when I plot the tree. And this PRP function plots the tree, and you'll see it come up on this side of the screen. So here it is. Here's our decision tree. And what it's saying is if the home value is less than $267,000, and the job is, I think it's a clerical job or a homemaker, or I think that's standard.
No,
or student. So if all those conditions are met, the average income was $20,000 or $20,600. And you can see, if you follow the logic, yes goes to the left and no goes to the right, and it just creates these different buckets with the averages. This is what I really liked about this PRP function, is that you can interact with the plot. So let's see. So I'm going to plot up. This is an old one. This was, let me just do this one more time. I was looking at another tree here, but this is really cool. This takes a little time. I think I have to quit out of that one first. Okay, so now let's say I only wanted 3 buckets instead of 2. You can just click right at the split, and then hit quit. And then when I go and plot my new tree, it aggregated that bucket, so it aggregated that split. So if you find that you have 10 buckets and you really only want 2, you could use this cool little snip function to aggregate those levels and really minimize the splits to something that's manageable and something that you can actually code into a into a SAS program or a model, and then you could just plot the new tree like that. So that's it, really. Pretty quick. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
I think this is really good, and it's just clear and cuts right to the chase. And I think anybody who is new to R, I got to believe this is going to be very valuable to them. But does anybody else have it? And you'll Paul, you can send me this code, and I'll forward it on to the students.
Sure. Yes.
Thank you so very much. Does anybody have questions for Paul? I think you seem to have got a fan club here, Paul.
All right.
Yeah, I love when demonstrations are like this, and it just cuts right to the chase, and there's not a lot of. It's like somebody said that this is much simpler than the stuff you find online. And I think that that's really the way to go. Is a lot of times people online, just like in Google or whatever, they'll assume that everyone's an expert at R, and that's not the case. So I love this. Do we have any other volunteers? I mean, we still got another 10 minutes or so, and I'll stay later if people want, but
I can share my other decision tree stuff I've done in R.
Who's this?
This is Tyler Hawks.
Hey, Tyler, I'll go for that.
Okay.
And just so we can keep the time, is there anybody else who wants to go after Tyler? Just put a message in the chat window so so we can pace ourselves accordingly here. Tyler, you get to share your screen while other people think about texting in if they're interested in sending.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
I can. This is oh, that's cool. Wow.
So I'm going to just drop everything here. So I've been doing this for the logistic regression data set. So there's another package for doing decision trees, and it's the party package. And after using that, I Googled around for a while and found some code to actually navigate the trees. So there's, how many lines of code is that? It's about 90 lines of code. And we get 5 functions. And anyway, just as was explained before, we get a data set from the CSV, and then I do some cleaning up on it. And I actually treat kids driving as a factor, so along with kids at home as well. Not that really matters. So anyway, just to see what this tree can do, and these can get to be pretty deep and complex, especially we've got 8,000 observations. By default, it will stop splitting either when the statistical significance, they can't find any split that's got a p-value of less than 0.05, or when you hit some minimums like your bucket size, there's only like 7 observations in the bucket, which makes sense if you got a really small data set. But to see how much this would split, we just run this. So same thing. So you call C tree. I just said the target flag equals like anything that's in there. So hopefully it doesn't choose the index, and it doesn't. And then you can set these controls. So if you do that, it takes it just a second. And you can see over here, it's now got this binary tree that's 9.2 megabytes. And I get a prediction out of it, and you hit this line, and it spits it all out as SAS code. a lot of SAS code. So anyway, doing the same thing that we saw before for like predicting income. I set income. I get rid of all the other variables that are missing because I don't want income to be predicted like with is it home values, because they both have missing values, and that will cause problems. So anyway, when we do the same thing for income, it's not as many lines, and so this is the SAS code that we get out of that. So anyway, some functions to build decision trees that can be arbitrarily deep, and then translate it to SAS code. And then there's also the plots. If you just save plot, it brings up the tree and shows you. It even has like little box plots, but since I'm this tree was this guy over here, I was just trying to see how many splits I could do on the driving points to predict the target. So anyway, that's what I got.
That is really cool. I especially like the fact that you can export SAS code. That's valuable because a lot of companies use R and Python to build their models, but I would say that a big chunk of them actually deploy their models in SAS because they have a lot of legacy systems. So the ability to convert your R models into SAS code is a very valuable thing. So if anybody wants to slog through this code and figure out how it works, that's probably would be a valuable career decision. So, can we get copies of this code, Tyler? I think you posted some of this already, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. For our 411 section, it's in the code snippets, and it's like way cleaned up with comments and everything. So
yeah, I thought I saw that. I'll try to send that code out with when I send the recording link for this. I think Sanj is trying to say something, but Sanj, I can't. I don't think anybody can hear you. Nope, I don't hear you, Sanj. I think we have. I think we have pretty much everyone who wanted to present. We only had 4 presenters tonight. Usually we have a few more, but I think we have some last-minute people couldn't make it. One student didn't make it but sent me the slides, so I'll certainly forward those to everyone as well. We might try to do this again later in the quarter, maybe around week 7, if anyone's interested in that. We'll see if there's interest in that. But I know that the 498 students probably are getting into the short strokes of their projects, so they may not be interested. But we'll see. But for the presenters tonight, I'm very grateful for you for giving up your time and presenting. I know it's kind of scary to do this, but it's very well appreciated by the other students. So any final comments, or we can adjourn for the night? Oh, Angela, you want to do that right now? Present on Sankey charts right now?
Yeah, I can do that now if you like.
Okay, if you want to. Can you do it in 5 minutes or less?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Angela, what's your last name so I can? You're in my 498, aren't you?
I am. Paterson.
Oh, Angela. Okay.
Hi.
I got so many students that a lot of them have the same first name, so I don't know who's who.
Oh, okay. This website, this sankeymadic.com site, has this really nifty interactive Sankey chart. And what I like about Sankey charts is that they're good for establishing the flow of data. So it's going from left to right, and you can show multiple inputs and a variety of outputs. And when you first pull up the site, it's got this default set of information here. And my team project is working on animal shelter data, and we're dealing with cats and dogs. So if you just go and replace the bits in the middle that are default and click preview, then it puts it to whatever your data is. So here I'm showing we've got this many cats coming in, that many dogs, here's your total, and then the animals leave the shelter in different ways. They get adopted, they die, and so on. And you can add multiple levels, you can move things around a little bit. This is working on the sigmoid function, so if you think to logistic regression where it's either a 0 or a 1, and you've got that neat little S-curve going on, so that's what it's basing the pictures on. And then you've got a few minor formatting things, like you can change up the colors. You only get 3 sets, but you can change the colors a little bit. And I've used this at work to demonstrate, say, gross margin from different districts and how they combine to contribute to a region. And what's beautiful about it is that you can quickly see at a glance the differences. Like, you can see a lot more pets get adopted than get euthanized. So it doesn't take any special sense to grasp this. And I used it with coworkers recently to show we have a report that has a bunch of different pieces, and maybe you've got 5 pieces that's part A and 1 piece of part B and 3 pieces of part C, and they all combine to form this thing, and then this thing gets combined with other stuff. And that sort of representation was helpful with no numbers. You can turn these labels off so that the labels don't have to clutter it up if there's something that aren't necessary. I forget, I think it's, yeah, that guy. Oh, well, that takes away the labels there. That takes away the values. So if you just want to focus on the shape of it and not so much the numbers behind it, and you have that as an option. There you go. Presentation over.
Gosh, I like this. This is called Sankey-matic?
Yep. This website, sankeymadic.com/build. Sankey charts are new to me. I'm not used to them, so this has been a delightful surprise to stumble across. Tableau has...
Oh, go ahead.
There's some neat examples of Sankey charts in Tableau. There's a site I found called Tablossable, and it links to things like this. And this guy did this nifty one with using polygon shapes in Tableau. These are really complicated to build, though. They're basically line charts, and then you've got a whole dashboard thing with stacked columns. But what's great is that you can hover over it and it lights it up. So it helps to trace the path from one side to the other. And this site has tons of examples. Unfortunately, I don't have the examples ready because this was last minute. But these guys make it so easy that for a relatively simple Sankey chart that you can control yourself, I mean, if I want to add another section, say I want to go from adopted to something else, I could just pop, as long as your words match from right side to left, you can make a new level out of it. And let's make something up. Let's say I've got 100 adopted animals go to... what's it? I forget.
But to orphanages.
Yeah. Okay.
And then how about like an old age home, like a one of those pet places that makes older people happy?
So you just do that, and then it does it. So now I've got this little offshoot here that's doing its own thing, with adoption becoming a middle step instead of the end step.
Wow, I'm assuming you can save this thing as a PDF and stuff?
It does. It's got a feature where you can export it to a PNG file, and you can choose, I guess, up to 3. Well, I guess print is a print quality, and so it gives you a chance to name the file and save it wherever you want it to go. And it's got a cost check. This thing is telling me now that my stuff is out of balance because I added these 2 things, and so now adoption is not quite right anymore. And maybe I care about that.
I love this. I'm doing this quarter. I'm going to ask all of the 498 students to list all of their finds. Because every quarter I get students who do this. They find some weird site out there that spins straw into gold, and then I'm like, 2 quarters later, I'm like, where the heck was that thing? But like, this is great. I could see that this would be useful for, just I love this site, and it's free. I love free.
Yes, free is nice, and it's a lot less work than trying to build it in Tableau.
Yes. So, does anybody else have any last minute volunteers? If not, we can adjourn for the night. But Angela, thank you so much for this.
Welcome.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stop recording.